This day in sports history. It's April 30th, and on this day in 1971, the Milwaukee Bucks claimed their first championship in franchise history. Nobody would have believed that it would take 50 years to win another one. The Bucks were a young franchise in '71. The city had only been awarded an expansion team back in 1968. But thanks to a few fortuitous happenings and the bungling of the ABA, here were the Milwaukee Bucks 3 years later playing for the championship. In their first year in the league, the Bucks won 17 games. They were the worst team in the East, but not the worst team in the NBA. Fellow expansion team, the Phoenix Suns, won only 12 games in their first season. The league decided to have a coin flip to determine which team would select first in the upcoming NBA draft, with the winner certainly selecting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, still known then as Lou Alcindor. The Suns owner Jerry Colangelo took a poll of the city, and the people of Phoenix voted to call heads.
The coin has come up tails.
So, the Bucks had the first pick in the 1969 NBA draft, and they selected Jabbar. But the ABA was also quite interested in bringing the 7-footer from UCLA to the Rebel League. In a secret draft, the New Jersey Nets were given the rights to Kareem since he'd grown up in New York. But whether it was hubris, incompetence, or they just didn't listen very well, the Nets and the ABA brass screwed it up. Jabbar told both the Bucks and the Nets to submit one offer. He felt that a bidding war would be degrading. The Bucks offered $1.4 million. The Nets' offer was lower, but they figured that they would counter once they knew what the Bucks' offer was. Their second offer was substantially higher at $3.2 million. That would have included a $1 million certified check handed over when he signed, but it was too late. John Wooden's teaching about personal integrity resonated with Kareem, and despite the higher second bid, declined and signed a contract with the Bucks. The thing is, ABA Commissioner George Mikan had the ability and the go-ahead to offer more money from the start. They knew how important Kareem would be to this fledgling league, but he lowballed, thinking that Kareem, as a kid born and raised in New York, would want to play close by, and then they would come back in and negotiate. And we're left with one of the great what-ifs of sports, right? If Kareem goes to the Nets, the ABA has a lot better shot at survival. It would have been instant legitimacy. So, what must the Nets and George Mikan been thinking on this day when they watched Milwaukee win the title? The other key component to the Bucks' immediate success was the addition of Oscar Robertson in the offseason. Robertson came to Milwaukee in a trade with Cincinnati. The Big O was instant offense. He'd been the first player to average a triple-double for a season back in 1962. He'd been a league MVP and a 10-time All-Star, but he had never won a championship. Okay, so that's how we got to this point. But now to what happened on this day. It was Game 4 of the '71 championship series. The Bucks were in Baltimore, and after winning the first 3 games of the series, could close it out on the road. The Bucks led by 13 at the break, but the Bullets came out of the locker room and scored 6 straight points to cut it to a 7-point lead. But they wouldn't get any closer. The Bucks responded with consecutive fast breaks and built the lead back up again, thanks to back-to-back buckets from the original Milwaukee Buck, John McLaughlin.
Gets it back outside to Robertson, a long pass to McLaughlin, the shooter. 68-53. As the ball goes into Alcindor. Robertson. 23 points for the Big O. 70.
Robertson saved his best for last, pouring in 30 points to lead all scorers in this one. Jabbar finished with 27 points and 12 rebounds. The Bucks closed it out with a 118-106 win, becoming only the second team up to that point to sweep a championship series. The Bucks, in just their third year, became the quickest expansion franchise to win an NBA title. With a young building block like Jabbar, the cagey veteran with gas still in the tank like Robertson, and role players surrounding them, the thought was this Bucks team was going to win multiple titles, and they could be the team of the '70s. But that did not materialize. and Milwaukee did not celebrate another NBA championship until 50 years later. Hey, you've heard me talk about the Sterling Soap Company for a while now, and whether you've jumped on board and smell like an absolute champion, or you've been a little hesitant, then here's a great opportunity for you. We're giving away a $75 gift card to use at sterlingsoap.com. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways for your chance to win a $75 gift card to the Sterling Soap Company. I've put a link in the show notes as well. Now, let's get back to the episode. If memes had been a thing back in 1998, then this surely would have been one of them. Heck, it's probably been made into one since memes became a thing. But on this day in '98, New York Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy tried to break up a fight between Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. After getting knocked to the ground, he grabbed onto Zoe's leg and hung on for dear life. This was Game 4 of the first-round playoff matchup between the 7th-seeded New York Knicks and the number 2 seed Miami Heat. With 7.4 seconds remaining and the Knicks up 90-85, the Knicks' Johnson and the Heat's Mourning, two guys who'd been teammates in Charlotte a few years before and hadn't really liked each other back then, got into a shoving match, which escalated into punching.
Hardaway, no. Rebound, New York. And fists are flying at the other end. Larry Johnson is one of them. Here we go. Oakley and Mourning have at each other.
Enter Jeff Van Gundy. He sprinted onto the court with the hope of stepping in between and saving his player from getting suspended. Instead, the diminutive coach was like a mosquito in the middle of two pit bulls and quickly found himself on the ground. The shot of Van Gundy clinging to Alonzo Mourning's leg is funny to watch in retrospect, but the on-court scuffle did result in suspensions. First off, the Knicks evened the series at 2 games apiece with their 5-point win. The NBA suspended Johnson and Mourning 2 games. Even though the Knicks were playing without Johnson and Patrick Ewing was on the bench with an injury, New York wrapped up the series with their 98-81 Game 5 win. On this day in 1993, Monica Seles was attacked while playing a tennis match. The 19-year-old Seles was the number 1 ranked women's tennis player in the world at the time. She had won the French Open the previous 3 years, the US Open and Australian Open the last 2. Her Australian Open title 2.5 months before had been a come-from-behind 3-set win over Steffi Graf. Well, on this day, the young Serbian was playing Bulgaria's Magdalena Maleeva in a quarterfinal match of the Citizen Cup in Hamburg, Germany. Seles was up a set and leading in the second set 4-3. She needed to win just 2 more games to move on to the semifinals. The left-handed Seles had just held serve and both players walked over to their courtside chairs on the changeover. About 45 seconds after Seles had taken her seat and was toweling off, 38-year-old Gunter Parcha reached over the courtside railing and plunged a 9-inch boning knife about a ½ inch into her back between her shoulder blades. Courtside fans and security grabbed Parcha around the neck as a stunned Seles rose to her feet and staggered toward midcourt. Her brother and tournament officials rushed to her aid, and they laid her down on the court. Later at the hospital, it was determined that the knife had narrowly missed her spinal cord, and it would take several weeks for that wound to heal properly. The mental injury took longer to heal, though. She did not play a competitive tennis match for more than 2 years, suffering from mental anguish, and she battled an eating disorder that she credited to the attack. Initially, the thought was this was politically motivated. This was before Yugoslavia split into Serbia and Montenegro. She had received death threats prior to this, but it was later determined that her attacker was a crazed fan of Steffi Graf and believed that by injuring Seles, his favorite player and the current world's number 2 would become the top player in the world again. Parcha's punishment was incredibly toothless. He was found to be psychologically abnormal during his trial, and he spent 6 months on probation and treatment. Seles never played tennis in Germany again after the lax sentence. She returned to the tennis court in August 1995 at the Canadian Open after becoming an American citizen. She was reinstated as the world number 1 at that point, sharing the ranking with Graf, and she promptly won her first tournament. At the U.S. Open that year, she lost in the finals to Graf. In January of 1996, Seles won the Australian for the 4th time, returning to her Grand Slam winning form and making an incredible comeback after what happened on this day in 1993. On this day in 2000, I've got a feeling that golfer Craig Stadler snapped his putter in half. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but it would certainly be understandable if he did. So on this day, he and Australian Robert Allenby were tied after 72 holes at the Shell Houston Open. They went to a sudden death playoff, and on the first playoff hole, the Walrus missed a 4-foot putt that would have won the tournament. On the second hole, he watched a 5-footer slip past that would have ended it. Playoff hole number 3, he couldn't get an 11-foot putt to fall that would have sealed the win yet again. And then on the 4th playoff hole, he watched Allenby roll in a 10-footer. His 8-footer to extend the playoff another hole missed. Stadler had not won on the PGA Tour in more than 4 years, and I can see Stadler breaking that flat stick over his knee after 4 makeable putts failed to fall. Stadler kept plugging away, though, winning his final PGA Tour event in 2003 at the BC Open, becoming the first player over 50 to win a PGA event in 28 years. And a couple of quick hitters for you here. In 1922, Chicago White Sox rookie Charlie Robertson pitched a perfect game in a 2-0 win against the Detroit Tigers. Robertson's effort was only the 3rd perfect game in modern baseball history. And on this day in 1976, Muhammad Ali retained his heavyweight title with a 15-round unanimous decision over Jimmy Young. Ali came into the fight weighing 230 pounds, his heaviest to that point, figuring Young would be easy prey. But he was not. In fact, ringside fans questioned the judge's decision after it became known that Young had outpunched Ali 222 to 113 and landed more than twice the number of power punches. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. On this day in 1952, the first television advertisement for a toy was shown, and it was for Mr. Potato Head. Inventor George Lerner invented a version of Mr. Potato Head in 1949, and then he sold the rights to Hasbro, which, in case you were wondering, is short for Hassenfeld Brothers. The original Mr. P, or would that be Mr. H? Anyway, the original had 30 plastic accessories that you attached to an actual potato. The thing that made the ad unique is that it appealed directly to kids instead of the adults who would be buying it. It was not until the 1960s, after government regulation, that Hasbro began including the plastic body to put the now less sharp plastic pieces into. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.